Welcome to BKL Nightly. I'm Thad Brown along with Caleb Carr, Rachel Liebert. It is Monday, September the 22nd. And we were just talking about who did the Bills play last? When was that game? Bills coming off a Thursday night win over the Dolphins. We're going to talk about that a little bit and also look forward to. And guys, coming out of that game, Bills are 3-0. They've scored 30 points all three games so far. There are so many positives. And I think the fans get frustrated if you pick at anything, although there are certainly concerns that the fans have as well. And I do think one of those concerns, we're going to start with this, is the third down defense, because it's a concern that stretches back to last season. This is something that the Bills dealt with all last year. They were 29th in the NFL in third down defense last year. This year, they're 24th right now, but the percentage of third downs allowed, identical, 43% last year, 43% this year. This year, it's a little higher ranking because it's early in the year and everybody's percentages are off. Let me first go to some sound from Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich addressing what they say some of the issues are with that third down defense early in the season here.
The third downs, however, in the red zone, we just went through third down as a defensive staff, and just not enough of things working together. So, that'll be a point of emphasis as we move forward.
It starts with me. I got to put us in the right position, and then we got to be able to execute. We know what the weaknesses are of every call that we're in, and if they attack one of the weaknesses, it's my job to put us in a different call. And so we'll certainly address that, get it corrected, and look to be better next time.
The defense, I feel like, is moving in the right direction. Certainly getting healthy will help some of that, getting healthier. We'll see where that goes. But, again, it's just continue to try and take steps every week. Every week's a challenge, but continue to try and grow and bring some of these young players along at the same time.
So not a ton of answers, to be honest, from those guys. Caleb, let me go over to you. Third down defense, we're going to address this later in the BKL Nightly Roundtable. Let me start. How much of a concern is it, considering the Bills are 3-0 to open this season?
It's definitely a small concern, but I wouldn't call it like this big, huge concern. Also, when you look at, I think it's important to note that Ed Oliver was out again this week, and Matt Milano was also out. And those are two guys that you rely pretty heavily on to lead this defense and to be big factors in this defense. Now, I don't think that's an excuse to let up, 10 third downs against the Dolphins. I don't think that's an excuse, but it is an important thing to note. But I think there's some injury problems, and that's definitely causing it. But there's still a little bit of a concern. But like I said, with the fact that those two guys were out, and the fact that this Miami offense is as explosive as it is, and that kind of played a factor as well, I'm not overly concerned because of the fact that they've been able to make up for it in other areas.
The Ed Oliver injury certainly is a big part of that. I mean, we saw what kind of an impact he can be in the first couple of weeks of the year, especially that Ravens game. Matt Milano, though, I don't know if I mean, he's a starting linebacker and a guy the Bills are hoping to get more from, but I don't know if I really sit there and say, well, if Matt Milano's in, it would have been a lot better. Probably been a little bit better. Rachel, this third down defense is extended back to last year when the Bills were healthier, when they had Ed Oliver, so you almost hear it from what the coaches were saying. There's a lot of we need to get better, we're hoping for young guys, healthy. I mean, and those things will help, but this ain't the last injury the Bills are probably going to have this year either. I don't know where they go third down wise.
Yeah, for me, I mean, we can chalk it up to some injuries. Maybe with the Ed Oliver, I would say more as potentially being a game changer in the situation. But for me, the concern is more, a lot of these third downs weren't 3rd and 1, 3rd and short. They were 3rd and 5+ yards, and Miami moved the ball down the field. And so for me, the concern is, maybe Tua was under pressure a little bit, but he got out of that and they were able to move the ball down the field. So for me, I don't think this is something that is going to maybe drastically be continuing throughout the season of being an issue. But especially out of this game, I just think we've been talking about the defense as a whole just being a concern and kind of leading into that secondary, maybe being the more of those, two of the line and of the secondary being more of the issue. And I think being the 3rd and long and then being able to convert 10 of 15, converting a 4th down as well, that's more of where my concern lies, maybe more of in the backfield aspect of them being able to convert than maybe up front.
I thought in this game, the Dolphins had a good game. like sometimes the other team just has a good game plan. They play well. I thought Tua had his best game in terms of being able to create out of the pocket, create on the run, use his legs. So I think some of it in this game is about the Dolphins being good. But if you take out the Jets game, where they were 0 for 11, but the Jets are one of the 2 or 3 worst offenses in the NFL, the Bills have allowed 16 of 26 conversions this year. Now, that's 58, 60%, something like that. Last year, the worst defense in the NFL allowed 50% on third down. So right now, in games that are not against defunct offenses, the Bills are allowing a rate that's higher than anybody in the league allowed last year. We're going to get into a little later about how the Bills might address it. I just think that this is an issue that is not going away. It might be masked a little bit by the fact that, well, all we got to do is allow less than 30. We're going to win the game, Let's talk a little bit more about a couple guys on the defense, rookies, who I think have started out the year okay. One of them better than the other one, but Deion Walker and TJ Sanders, the 2 defensive tackles who were supposed to be a part of this rebuild in terms of the defensive line. Rachel, give me your impression of these 2 guys as a whole right now. I know that Walker so far has been the better of the 2 players, but the whole, we're bringing in 8,000 guys to play defensive line. Obviously, Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi are suspended, and Landon Jackson hasn't played at all. So of the guys who have been there, who have been new, both in these 2, specifically these 2, though, where do you think the Bills are in terms of, wow, this helped?
I mean, like you said, Deion Walker, I think of the 2 rookies, is done a lot better and seems like a guy that could be moving forward, helpful for this team. TJ Sanders maybe not as much. I mean, they've done well for being rookies and having to be in this situation of there's injuries, there's guys who aren't playing the first 6 games, and we need someone to step up and be here. I mean, I don't know if they kind of go into the issue of the defense being a problem, especially as we go back to that third down conversation. I don't know if it's specifically them, but I mean, I think for what they've been given and in the situations that they've been in, I feel like I've been fairly impressed. Nothing over the top, but I think especially Deion Walker has been maybe the conversation of they seem to be getting integrated with this defense and can down the line maybe have bigger roles.
I think the point about what they are relative to being rookies is important, because I think we've all looked at, sometimes guys come in the league and if they're anything but a 7th round draft pick, you're like, immediate production, please help my football team. And it shouldn't just work that way. Guys need to take time to develop, and we haven't seen a lot from Sanders yet, but Walker is making plays. And when you put that into the, next to the measuring stick of, well, it's game 3, I think the Bills have probably gotten pretty much all they could have hoped from these guys so far. Maybe not all, but they're in good shape.
Yeah, I've definitely been pleased with what I've seen from Deion Walker. Obviously, the most notable play that he's had was that pressure on Tua on the late game interception.
Which a great play.
Great play.
But the Dolphins offensive lineman blew the block. I mean,
yes.
Like anyone in the league probably makes that play. He made it.
But that's his most notable.
For sure.
I'm saying.
Yes.
Most notable. Maybe not the best play, obviously.
Yeah.
You go back and you watch every single play. I'm sure he's had plenty more, but that's the most notable play that he's had so far. But he's definitely had some good plays, like we just said. Some good plays. He's been getting in there. I think it was kind of obvious going into the season that maybe he was going to be the guy that got more opportunities to TJ Sanders. So I don't think it's that big of a surprise to see him doing better than Sanders. For what Sanders, again, like you just said, rookie, but also the fact that I don't think anyone really expected Ed Oliver to get hurt and Sanders to be like kind of thrown into this role. Even Sanders himself, I doubt he expected to be seeing this much field time this early. So taking that into account as well as the fact that he is still just a rookie, I'm pleased with what I've seen from him so far. It's not nearly as good as what Deion Walker has showed, but like if the expectation is just don't suck, then he's definitely met and exceeded that expectation.
We have climbed that bar, that's for sure. No, but it's not. It's a joke, but it almost isn't. Because as a guy, now I think we back up to Deion versus TJ Sanders. The only issue there is Sanders was a 2nd round pick and Walker was a 4th. Mm-hmm. So based on draft pick, you'd want Sanders to be better. But yeah, I mean, look, you want the rookies to contribute more higher than don't suck. You want them to give me something.
Absolutely.
And Sanders, there is also a level of defensive tackle where not sucking can be a thing. We're not allowing Derrick Henry to run for $150 at halftime can be a thing. And since that first game, we haven't had that. The Dolphins ran it fairly well. So there's been improvement there. But overall, the 2 guys, I think, have done a good job. talking with them in the locker room, one of the things I thought was very interesting was how much they support each other. They really have a bond being built, and not surprised because they're both rookies. They play the same position. They're learning things at the same time. They're learning from the same coach, the same people at the same time. So they talked a little bit, TJ a little more than Deion Walker, about how they are helping each other out, not only in the locker room Monday through Saturday, but on the sideline during the game on Sunday or Thursday.
With Deion, he always usually has a fine line to where he doesn't get really too high or too low. And, I just wanted to, kind of remind him that, bro, you're unmesswittable. No one out here can block you, bro. Just constantly telling him that throughout the game. Even when I see him down or up, he just letting him know, bro, you go out there and do you'll be perfectly fine.
I feel like it helps so much because, rookies, we hit the rookie wall. We have frustrations because this is our first time doing it, so I'm very thankful that I got so many good, vets in my room and on this team in general.
Knowing that we're both young, it's going to be kind of, hard or tough early on, and just trying to let it waver, trying to make sure we both stand on our cues, stand on our keys, and just know that not letting the game speed us up, and where we're just playing fast as we can.
Not gonna lie, I like both these guys. For rookies, they are fun to talk to. They've got a positive personality, so it's been enjoyable to deal with these guys and to see how much they're working together. It's also fun to see that build up as well. All right, let's move on to our BKL roundtable. We're gonna hit 2 topics and then do our Monday tradition being our second week doing this, of what we're more confident in, what we're more worried about after this game. But question number 1 here for today. We talked about third down defense to open the show. Give me one player, assumably on defense, Rachel, you can go first, who you think is most likely to help the third down issues the rest of the year. It does not have to be a player who has played in the first 3 games.
Okay, Caleb and I talked about this a little bit, and we kind of came to the agreement that Ed Oliver might be the blanket statement of, okay, when Ed Oliver returns, he should help this third down defense.
But to be fair, he was on the field in the Ravens game,
right,
which was also bad.
You're right. So for me, it seems like the line, it has to be a lineman, but then I was kind of thinking of going back to what we were talking about earlier, third and long seemed to be an issue. And not that there's really a specific person in the secondary that I think can solve all of these problems of, the Miami's getting the ball deep down the field and their receivers are just beating these DBs. But for me, I think Christian Benford is my answer. And just because I think as the leader in that group, if he's able to not fix mistakes, I don't think Benford particularly stood out as being someone that was getting beat. There were a few times, but it was across the secondary. But for me, I think the secondary and him being the leader in the secondary can be a guy that could potentially help this third down defense, just because going back to, it wasn't just a 3rd and 1. It wasn't just, they're diving over the pile and getting that extra yard. It was, there were balls downfield. And so for me, I think if anybody in the secondary is going to fix that, I think Christian Benford could step up and be that leader. Not saying he hasn't been doing a good job, but just that's kind of my overall thought.
No, I think it's a fair point. That you want your number 1 corner to be a number 1 corner, and he's been good, but not elite shutdown guy. He may never have that, but I think it's not unfair to expect more out of that guy. For the record, by the way, I did go through the play-by-play. 4 times, the Dolphins converted 3rd and 7 or more, and they had that one sequence where they converted 3rd and 14. First they did the trick play, then to go for it on 4th down. So they did convert 5 third and long situations. The Bills did stop them on some as well, but 5's a big number, Caleb. Where do you go on the player you're looking at to make a difference on third down?
Yeah, I agree that 5 is a big number, and I agree that the secondary is definitely a problem. But I still just feel like it's the run game that really needs to improve the most. And for that, I agree that Ed Oliver's kind of the blanket, but I'm going to go with the other guy on the defensive line, a rookie that we just talked about. I'm going to go Deion Walker. I really think that if Walker I think he's gotten better each week, and I think he's starting to show he's if you dive into the film, then you can see how he's really been how good he's really been doing. But this week with that rush that kind of created pressure, I thought that was one of his first plays, and like you said, the offensive lineman kind of blew the block, but that was one of the first plays that you really saw him do something really, really good. And I think that if he keeps improving, he can keep doing that, and if he can kind of step up in the run game, and him and Ed Oliver can be 1A, 1B, they can really shut down that line, which can make third down conversions really, really tough.
There is an amount of wiggle to that big 6'7", 330-pound body that makes him a pain in the neck for quarterbacks. And if he could hone that, technique it a little better, I see where you're going with that. I'm going to stay on the defensive line. Look, Joey Bosa was phenomenal against the Jets, right? Probably not coincidence that the Jets were 0 for 11 on third down. Obviously, the Jets are bad. But to me, that's my answer. It's Joey Bosa. He's the guy that has the high-end pass rush ability that can make everything behind a whole lot easier. And you saw it. We've seen it in the game already. He was okay against Baltimore. He was okay against Miami. He was a terror against the Jets. And suddenly the third down defense was better. The Bills have never really had that guy. I don't know how much more you can expect out of Joey Bosa. I bet he's like that this week with 10 days off. But if anybody on this team, I think, can individually make the difference, to me, it's number 97. All right, question number 2 here is, which team in the AFC is most likely to derail the Bills from a 1 seed? The Bills are 3-0. Chiefs are 1-2. Ravens are 1-1 pending the Monday night game. The Bills' schedule looks really easy. So who's left? Who's the problem? Caleb, we'll go to you first.
So I'm going to start by saying I think the best team aside from the Bills, if we are considering the Bills the best team in the AFC.
I think we have to.
I think we have to at this point. But the best team besides them, I think, is the Baltimore Ravens. But that's not my answer. My answer is the Los Angeles Chargers, solely because they've opened their season with 3 divisional games against the Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, and they've shown that they can beat all of them. They're 3-0, and the rest of their schedule is kind of similar to the Bills, where it's really not that difficult until they get to the end. They have to play the Chiefs again. They play the Eagles towards the end. I think they have a game against the Texans towards the end of the season. But it's obviously not a cakewalk. It's the NFL. Anyone can beat anyone. We just saw that with the Cleveland Browns. So anyone can beat anyone. So it's not going to be a cakewalk. But I think that the team that can get the most wins and have that opportunity to go above the Bills, I think, has to be the Chargers, especially since the Bills currently hold the tiebreaker over Baltimore.
All right, Chargers schedules: Giants, Commanders, Dolphins, Colts, Vikings, Titans, Steelers, Jags, Raiders, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Texans, Broncos. So Chiefs, Broncos, Eagles, Steelers, kinda, Commanders,
maybe the Colts.
I mean, do we take that 3-0 team seriously?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know yet. Who knows?
The Chargers schedule is harder than the Bills.
Yes, but it's still not.
It's not ridiculous.
That hard.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rachel, who's your team?
I'm going to go with the Ravens. Caleb said that they're the second best team in the AFC, and that's really why I'm picking them. I think they have an offense that is just so hard to stop, and I think, the Bills beat them once, but barely, and I just feel like the Ravens, if there's any team that can climb their way to the top, even though they're 1-1 right now, and other teams, they play tonight, right? Against
Detroit, yeah.
Detroit, yeah. So, I guess we'll see after tonight. Maybe that'll change my answer. But as of right now, I'm going to say the Ravens. I just think when you have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, I just think that's a hard offense to stop, and I think they have the potential to be that 1 seed.
The thing with the Ravens, maybe not bad. So the Ravens schedule, after they play the Lions, they still have the Chiefs left next week, actually. They have the Rams, which is a hard one. And then other than that, the Vikings maybe, and a game with the Packers late in the season. So there are some landmines there. You talked about, Caleb, who the best team in the AFC is. I think you can make an argument for Baltimore. If they win tonight, you can make that argument. But 1 seed wise, the Bills have the tiebreaker, the 1-game lead, and the easier schedule. So my answer is going to be the answer that jerk teacher used to give you in school, where they just put this question out to make them look smart. And it was like, ooh, what a clever answer. You're awesome. My answer is the Bills. Really, the only team that can stop the Bills from getting the 1 seed, in my opinion, is the Bills. Their schedule is that easy. Yeah, shake your head.
This is a trick question.
He asked the question. He knew.
Yes, I prefaced it. And trust me, when I thought of the question, that's exactly the answer I thought of. And I knew this is the response I would get. And that's why I prefaced it that way, okay? I am that jerk teacher. I'm going to own up to that. However, my point is, because of the schedule, because of the advantage the Bills already have, because of the difficulties other teams have with their schedules, basically, unless the Bills fall on their face, I don't see how they don't get it. Other than that and injury. That there are too many advantages they have already built in through 3 weeks. The teams that are 3-0, the one of them, the Colts, nobody buys into because it's Daniel Jones. The Chargers are a thing. You buy into them?
A little bit.
All right. That would be a good roundtable topic for another show. I'll buy into them a little bit. But separate to that, this is the Bills' 1 seed to get. So unless they, and look, there have been years where they have done dumb things, and we've talked about issues that they might have. I just don't see it otherwise. All right, let's move on to confidence up, worry up. We'll start with the confidence up here. Caleb, give me your, semi-quickly here, your guy that you like a little better coming out of the Dolphins game.
James Cook. He's been so efficient in the run game. He's looked great. I mean, the run game as a whole, honestly, Josh Allen's been kind of efficient as well, but just James Cook, he's looked great. He's looked worth the price tag. And he's definitely the guy. If the ball has to go to somebody, I want it to go to James Cook right now.
Rachel?
Dalton Kincaid, for me, I know we saw what Dalton Kincaid could do, but we also saw what he couldn't do. But I feel like the things that he did well made me more confident in the fact that he can be a playmaker and kind of lead the offense. I think he did lead the offense in receiving yards. So just for me, I feel more confident about him as we've been kind of back and forth as to what his potential and what his ceiling is. So I'm going to go with Kincaid.
I like that pick. In terms of again, looking through the lens of this is who he's going to be. He's not going to be Travis Kelce. He's going to be a guy that when you get him in space, he can make a good hands catch and make a guy miss here or there. If you understand that's the expectations, that was the good game. That was the Dalton Kincaid game you want to get. So I like that answer. I'm going with Deion Walker. We've talked about him a lot. The thing that I want to add to the Deion Walker conversation is that you saw the production against the pass with the play at the end that forced the interception. But against the run in this game, which has not been his strength so far, he's been kind of pushed around a little bit. You saw him get down the line of scrimmage and making a play here or there. There was a play or two where he fought a double team to kind of hold up a run game. It's been better. This is not, Vita Vea, who you can't run on in Tampa at all. But he got better in that way, and adding that to a guy who's already been pretty decent when it comes to the pass rush part of his game, I was encouraged. All right, let's go worry up. Guy that you're a little more nervous about after this game. Rachel, you have the honors of this one.
Trey White. I mean, I feel like I sound like a broken record just talking about the secondary, but Trey White, and we discussed this after the game. Do we want to say it's injury? But I just think it's Trey White not being new to the NFL. Trey White's been in the NFL for a while, and I don't know, he just seemed maybe a little slow, maybe a little bit behind. He got beat a few times, and it's just a lot of hype was around him coming back to this Bills team and just what he can do. But so far we've only seen 2 games, but we haven't seen much of what Trey White can't do. So that's where my concern is.
He had a nice pass breakup early. He had another play where he ran down a wide receiver screen well. But yeah, I think it's a fair answer, considering how the Dolphins seem to target him late in the game. Caleb.
I'm going to go with the defense, but mainly the consistency of the defense. Obviously, we saw in Baltimore struggled to begin, still kind of struggled at the end. It just Ed Oliver made a good play, in my opinion. They never really looked great on defense. Obviously, the Jets is the Jets, but then against the Dolphins, they let up a long drive for a touchdown, had 2 3-and-outs, then let up another long drive for a touchdown, 2 more 3-and-outs, had another long drive for a touchdown, and then had another one going, and Terrell Bernard just made a good play, or Tua made a bad play. But I think my biggest concern right now is just this defense needs to get consistent. When they're good, they're really good, but when they're bad, they're bad.
I agree with that. I think that's a reasonable concern to have. For me, I'm going to go with Deion Dawkins. I think we talked a little bit about week 1. There was it wasn't Deion's best game. Week 2 against the Jets came back, looked fine. In this game, wasn't great. This is not an alarm game for me, but in terms of who am I worried a little bit more for, I've now seen 2 out of 3 games that are not up to Deion Dawkins' level. Not that he's playing bad, but for the guy that's been to multiple Pro Bowls, I've seen 2 out of 3 that have not been that. So this is not a situation where, whoa, what are they going to do without someone to protect Josh Allen's blind side? They'll be okay, I think, but I want to keep watching 73 and see how he moves, through the rest of the season. All right. After the game on Thursday night, our guy Josh Reed from WIVB in Buffalo, who's on this show quite a bit, caught up with one of the heroes of this game. That would be Mr. Jackson Hawes for a one-on-one interview.
Jackson, when you were drafted, everybody here was told that you were a blocking tight end. Yep.
Jackson Hawes, nice to meet you.
Jackson, you 2 games here at home, made 2 huge catches, one against the Ravens. Your first touchdown of your NFL career tonight. Walk us through that play.
Yeah, I don't know if you peeped it at the first part, but I kind of didn't really know what the personnel was. These Thursday games, it's tough because this is the first time we get to run some of these plays. We called the timeout. Coach still had faith in it. Slipped a little bit there at the start, but, Josh just being magic Josh.
Did you anticipate the ball coming to you? Because it looked like you got your hands up a little late there.
You always got to anticipate it with him, and walkthroughs and stuff, and we're kind of just messing around a little bit. He'll kind of give you some no-lookers every now and then. You got to be ready.
We had some fun about catching the touchdown there, but your blocking is a big reason why you were on the field.
Yeah.
James Cook goes over 100 yards in this one. How much fun is it when he gets going?
Well, first of all, it's a blast because I got him on my fantasy, so anytime I can help contribute to my own team in that way is really nice. But no, I take a lot of pride in it, and James is such an exceptional runner. The whole offensive line and Dalton, Doss, and Reggie are just really stout guys that we love to take the fight to guys, and so it's a great unit.
Got to go back to that touchdown. You spiked the ball. Did you get it back?
I think someone picked it up for me. I blacked out a little bit. I should have kept it, but something just told me my inner tight end to just spike it.
As a trick question, Keon Coleman grabbed it for you. I think you owe him a steak.
Let's go. I probably owe him a steak dinner.
All right, good for you.
All right, there you go. Jackson Hawes saying a thank you to Keon Coleman. And look, hey, let's talk about Keon Coleman for a minute and this Bills receiver group, because one of the things we haven't seen from this Bills passing game a lot is the deep ball. And it's actually, Caleb, there are a couple of numbers out there that really kind of underline the lack of a deep ball in this offense so far.
Yeah, Josh Allen, for his entire career, he ended every single season in the top half of the league when it comes to average air yards per attempt. Couple seasons he was number 1, couple seasons he was top 5. Last year he was a little bit lower in his MVP season, but now he currently through 3 games sits at like 26, I believe it is. And he hasn't been playing bad by any means, but they've definitely been, checking the ball down a little bit more, going for those shorter things. And I think that's part because they've been leaning heavily on the run game these first few games, and that might also maybe be part of the confidence of some of the receivers deep down the field. I mean, we've seen Keon Coleman and Joshua Palmer make some big plays, but when you've got guys like Elijah Moore who you can dump it off for 5 yards and he runs another 20, you don't need to throw it 30 yards down the field. Only
4 quarterbacks in the NFL who've started all 3 games so far have less deep throw attempts, 20 yards or more this year. Josh has 9. Rachel, to Caleb's point, I don't know if there's a need to throw it deep when everything's working so well underneath, but you do want to have this Bills offense be balanced.
Yeah, it seems that it's a lot of it's been relying on the run game, and then you kind of just can get the ball enough down the field. Like, it feels like the drives the Bills have put together have kind of just been inching their way down the field, slow and steady. I mean, there's only been a few deep balls, I guess, in the Ravens. That final drive of the Ravens game is kind of like the highlight of what I think about when he was going down the field. But I think it's just confidence in your run game, and maybe, like you said, a little bit lack of confidence just in that who is going to be able to come down with those deep balls. So, I don't think it's that much of a concern, but it is something that's definitely interesting when you look at the past few years.
I do think it's the personnel this offense, how they operate, fits the personnel. They don't really have a speed guy. Maybe, Keon isn't not necessarily a speed player, but he can go down there as a jump ball type player. Elijah Moore, maybe, there isn't really a guy we say, that's the guy I want running the straight ahead route, the go route. And everything else the Bills have does work. Dalton Kincaid over the middle, Khalil Shakir over the middle. Let's run the ball. Let's dump it to Ty Johnson. Let's dump it to James. All those things are great. So if all those things are good and the deep ball is the thing you may not have the personnel for, well, let's not throw it that much. Doesn't mean that you can't ever throw it, because teams will just pack the line of scrimmage until you run out of room for all the other good stuff you do. But I'm with you guys. I don't think it's that big an issue so far. All right, we're going to wrap it up here in BKL Nightly. We'll be back again tomorrow with the Let's Talk Ball show. Me and Carl Jones breaking down the X's and the O's. Saints coming in this weekend. Can't wait. It's going to be super exciting, right, guys? Woo! Close game coming up. Maybe not. 16 and a half
we said
spread.
that about Miami. And
Fair point. All right. For Caleb and Rachel, I'm Thad. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.